Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. May we request all of you to please take your seats. Delegates in the pre-convention area, we request all of you to please join us back in the conference hall. We're about to begin. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining us quickly after that lunch that all of us have just had. It's time now to begin with our next session. And yes, this one is on alternate channels versus revenue generators. To address us on the session, we have with us Mr. Prasanna Lohar, who is the Head Innovation at DCB Bank. May I request all of you to please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Lohar on stage. So could you please join us on stage? We're also going to be joined by Mr. Rajneesh Khare, the Head Digital Transformation, Social Business and New Media, and Mobility Banking at HDFC Bank. Let's welcome him with a round of applause. Also joining us on the panel with their input, we have Mr. Ram Rastogi, who is the Vice President and Head IMPS at National Payments Corporation of India. Can we welcome him with a round of applause? Joining us on the session, we have with us Mr. Sanjeev Patel, the CEO, Tata Communications Payment Solutions Limited. Let's put our hands together and welcome Mr. Patel. To moderate the session, we have with us Mr. Patrick Kishore, the Senior Domain Expert at the Institute of Development and Research in Banking Technology. Let's put our hands together. Welcome, Mr. Kishore. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the panel. And on that note, I'm now going to hand over the proceedings of the session to our moderator, Mr. Kishore. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. I know I have a very difficult task. Apparently, a lot of other people also have a difficult task coming from outside to inside. So, we'll have to make it a little interesting so that the few people who are here don't fall asleep. And we certainly will not. The subject is about how alternate channels can be used for revenue generation. Actually, when we thought of this subject we finalized sometime in September, October. All right. After that, demonetization struck us. The alternate channels that we are all very comfortable with so far has been ATMs, internet banking, mobile banking, and so on. Suddenly, all those things go to the background, and there's a lot of sense of urgency in the here and now situation that ATMs are not working anyway. All right, there was no cash at the ATMs. We already reached a cashless society. Internet banking, there's no great accretion to the number of users. The people who are loyally using internet banking continue to use it. Mobile banking has always been a bit of a slow starter. But in the process, what has happened is the wallets have suddenly come from nowhere. And today, the world is full of wallets. You see a new wallet launched every day. All right, there are so many wallets. In fact, so many, the market has become so active that the day after the Prime Minister announced the Bhim app, there are half a dozen clones, half a dozen how to use Bhim and Bhim user manual and so similar kind of things. And the person who unknowingly would download one of those things, he's not sure what he's getting into. He doesn't know what he's getting into. All right. So while as bankers there is a concern on how we can leverage alternate channels for revenue generation or cost saving, both are the same, right? While that is there, we also suddenly find that alternate channels have now become the mainstream. And there are new channels coming up. In the morning, you saw people talking about social media banking and, that kind of thing. So, I will start with Ram Rastogi. He's the one who started our IMPS for us. He's the one who actually set the cat among the pigeons. Ram, can you tell us, as the adoption of these alternate channels, in particular, I'm not going into ATM and internet banking now. In particular, the mobile-based, the telecom-based payment instruments or payment methods, what are the challenges that India faces? What are the challenges that Bharat faces? I make a distinction between India and Bharat. What are the challenges in a quick adoption so that we don't go back to that morass of, cash and cash everywhere? Okay, take this.
Good afternoon. Let me tell you, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication in the payments. So if you compare your payment system, which is as simple as cash transaction, as quick as cash transaction, and ubiquity like a cash transaction, that will work in India. The market is huge. By 2020, the digital payments will be $500 billion in India. 45% will be cash to business. Consumer to business, that is merchant payment. Business to business will be 35%. 11% will be P2P and the remaining will be G2B, G2G, G2C. This is a payment scenario in this country, but where are we? We are nowhere. Today, the transactions are happening because we are forced to do the transactions. So we have to create a payment system where the payment is driving consumption, not the otherwise. Payment has to decide, where data has to decide, the people have to decide, basis the CRM that which way the payment should go. Payment should drive the consumption. The second thing, the payment has to be simple. Now, enablers are there today. We have smartphones, we have ubiquitous connections, we have cloud computing, but then we do not have the simplicity at that time. So what we did in NPCI, we realized this thing and we created an USSD-based payment system. So we went to the government and government has given us a code which is *99#. And we went to all the telcos, spent a lot of time and energy convincing them that give us a connectivity. So today, this *99 is one of the simplest payment system what we have. Whereby just dialing *99 as any bank customer can send and receive money. Now, the second stage what we have done, we are going to attach that with the Bhim application. So making it a versatility and it becomes a bank agnostic system whereby any bank customer can download the app and wherever he has got a data grid connectivity, they can use the UPI, and wherever he is traveling and data grid connectivity is not there, he can use the USSD based transactions. So that is there and is going to really take the entire system to the next level. By 2020, the acceptance scenario is going to be 10x from 1.4 billion merchant POS terminals. We are going to have more than 12 million. And here, the card-based transaction is not going to survive, and that's why we are working on the mobile-based channels where using USSD, you can pull or push money from the merchants, from the customers. So these are the scenarios, and we have created the railroad. We request our member banks, partner banks to use that, create and use cases, and make a simpler thing for the users. And that is going to take it forward. Thank you.
Rajnish, practicing banker. How do you get customers on board? ATM was the easiest because that was something everywhere you could kick. If you didn't like it, you could kick that. Earlier, you couldn't kick a bank employee. Right? Internet banking, again, you could curse, you could do whatever. But mobile phone, if you are angry with the phone, you throw it and it's your own loss. Okay? So all these wallets and so on, which are critically dependent on your handset and the communication link, they have to be available all the time. They have to be rock solid, right? So in that kind of a scenario, how do you get customers on board, both the people like us and also people in Jumritalaya?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, sir. Again, disclaimer, these are all again personal views and not necessarily reflect the views of the bank. Sir has just spoken about how do we get the customer on board. Given that mobile penetration in India, I mean, we talk about more than 1 billion phones in India, but at the same time, we also know that only 25% of them are smartphones. At the same time, we also know that 70% of that only have data coverage. So if mobile is going to become the alternate channel for converting cash to digital, the coverage of mobile, the cost of mobile, the features of mobile first have to improve. I mean, almost 15 years and we still don't have a multilingual mobile phone. I mean, are we all suddenly become English or something? We need that. The important point, sir, is that if I look at alternate channels which are emerging, they are very, very powerful channels which are emerging now. And the all pervasive, not the mobile, is actually the social, which has become all pervasive. Facebook claims to have around more than 60 million customers in India, logging into their Facebook account every day. So if I can take the banking to Facebook, I mean, that is where the mobile phone is not needed. I mean, you are using desktop browsers, you are using mobile phones, and now the wearables are becoming smarter that the smartwatches are coming, which have the capability to connect to net. And then government going after smart cities, and Mumbai also I heard that there are 500 Wi-Fi zones being created. So the coverage is going to improve. It's the mobile phone which is not improving. And if the mobile phone is going to improve, the acceptance infrastructure is missing. Now, if we try to push the acceptance infrastructure by 10x or 20x or 50x, as long as we are again talking about the same POS device, it's not going to happen. App-to-app payments came as a novelty, not working. I don't want to pay my cigarette wala with a app-to-app payment. He's not interested. So QR codes come into being. What we are seeing is that people have to transact, they need a medium. Internet became that medium. Then mobile became that medium. And now social is becoming that medium. And finally, with the creation of Wi-Fi zones across the country, which I am very positive it will happen, there's nothing which is left. The only thing which will be required is to improve the experience of the customer. The reason why, I mean, the people have been talking about demonetization, but I want to say one thing. Cash is not evil. And demonetization is not evil. We are not going to disappear from cash. We are not going to become a 100% cashless society. There are no apparent benefits of being 100% cashless society. It's ultimately a value exchange, which can be done through many means, whether it's a physical note, whether it's a digital transaction medium, maybe the digital currency. So what we are trying to do is, first of all, we know that social and mobile right now are sitting on the top of the pyramid as far as customer experience goes. So we are bringing banking over there. So we have gone with a conversational banking, which is called HDFC Bank on Chat, for example. People are very much used to typing on WhatsApp or Hike or Messenger, all messengers. I'm giving you the facility to send money there. I'm giving you the facility to book a cab there. I'm giving you the facility to book a movie ticket there. I'm also giving you the facility to create a group where you can create an event and things can be done. And there's no simpler experience than chatting because all of us have got used to it now. So what we believe is that the pyramid is going to invert. So we started with browsers. When internet came, then we came with feature phones, so SMS banking came. Then we Indians, obviously being very innovative, brought in missed call banking so that nobody has to spend anything. And then obviously came smartphones and apps. And suddenly apps were everybody's darling. But today it is. So if I look at my digital base, net banking, for example, continues to be the largest number of consumers, followed by SMS banking and missed call banking, followed by app banking. This trend is going to reverse in the next 5 years. You will see that the conversational banking using chatbots, artificial intelligence or natural language processing will be the top of the mind recall because they can give you the best experience. But then they require a proper smartphone with a proper connectivity. Social media is going to continue to be all pervasive for another 5, 10, 20 years to come. So on below this conversational banking, which is actually improving the experience, will sit the widest connected media, which is social media. So social media banking will become all pervasive. Apps give you a fantastic experience when it comes to OS and using your mobile. So they will be the third layer. Now we will still continue to have feature phones because it will take some time for this thing to happen, that smartphones, all phones get converted into smartphones. So the SMS banking or the missed call banking will remain. Browser will die. In next 5 years, people will forget what browser is because they will be having wearable. They will be having voice-enabled chatbots. They will talk to their wearable device. Wearable device will connect to the internet and they get everything executed for you. So what we are going to do, sir, is we are going to follow that inverted pyramid. That's how we are building our capabilities. Conversational banking, followed by social banking, followed by app-based banking. And obviously to address the current pyramid, the SMS and missed call banking continues. This is how we are trying to get customer on board.
Yeah, but I still have a problem. Khare obviously is from Bombay. He has not been to Jumri Talaya. He's talking about conversational user interface, right? Even now, all phones support only English. All banking applications are in English, right? How do we bridge that gap? Prasanna, any thoughts?
Hello. So first of all, I just add my inputs for the questions which you asked to Ram and Rajnish. There are various challenges around. So there is a challenge around network connectivity, internet connectivity. As Rajnish has rightly pointed out, there is only 26% area is there in India which is being covered by the internet. So these are all the challenges are there for which we are not able to go to the specified Bharat. So this is another challenge. Network connectivity is there. There is a political error. Because of this political force, sometimes we cut internet in that area also. So how do we do these cashless transactions, right? So apart from the question which you asked, like how we will go ahead with what kind of a user experience we'll provide or what kind of conversational banking we can provide so that more and more people will come onto the channels. So as you have seen how the channels has evolved, starting from ATM followed by the mobile or internet banking, then mobile and wallets and so on. So need is like the customer has become very smart. Customer is omnipresent. Customer is everywhere. You never know how the customer is going to interact or do the transact with the banks. So, and at the same time, customer is in another session, what Rajnish said, customer has become hyper. So customer wants all of the things right next door, immediate. So he's not able to, or he's not really willing to put that particular password when he knows that by biometric he's going to put his fingerprint or he can talk and immediately that response will come, you are authentic user. For while doing transactions, so the biometric is one of the way which will drive in the next generation. So wherein voice biometric, vein biometrics, or your palm, which could be the various means for doing conventional banking. So another perspective to look at the channels. So all these channels wherein the customers are doing financial, non-financial transactions, say ATMs, mobile, wallet, and so on. On the other side, we can talk about the indirect channels. So the data on which banks are residing, see a lot of transactions are done by the various customers based upon their various patterns or behavioral patterns. So can I give a service back to the customer? So those are the indirect channels by which the conversation, that is what banks will look forward. So apart from the direct channels, wherein the customer directly interacts with the various channels, indirect channels is going to be the next wave. So data, digital channels followed by the data. Analytics on top of that, we run various analytics and give back the customer, okay, this is a particular service I can offer based upon your trained behavioral patterns. So these are the two ways by which we can really interact with the customer, give the more and more services to the customers.
I have another problem. Initially, banks made all ATM transactions free. Even now, 5 transactions for the kind of money we earn is more than enough. Free transactions. Internet banking, there is no separate charge for the channel as such. Similarly, the mobile banking or mobile app, there is no charge. Suddenly, these wallets have come who presently are being funded by venture capital, who are offering paybacks and, a lot of incentives. But as a bank, Sanjeev, you are the businessman here actually. All of us are just salaried employees. You are the, right? How do we make money out of this?
So making money out of alternate channels is the primary problem that all banks face, right? Forget banks. All players in that ecosystem face that as a primary problem. And I mean, the space that we are in, which is primarily the ATM space, because it started much earlier than anybody else, is a primary example of how the economics, when over-regulated, can lead to a total stoppage in additional access points to customers. right? So today you've got ATMs that are stuck at about 220,000, right? The reason for that is it's no longer viable either for banks or for independent players to deploy ATMs, right? At the end, who suffers? It's your customer, right? He loses access to his own cash. Now, you'll be seeing a lot of this over the last couple of months, right? Queues at ATMs, this, that, and the other. The demand exists. What has been throttled is the supply, right? And it's something that sort of keeps us still in the business, because we know that as long as the supply evens out, that demand is going to go back to exactly where it was. I think the primary issue is all these ecosystems need to find their own economic viability levels without any interference from any regulator, government, or anybody as such. Because exactly the same thing is happening in the POS space, right? So you have this bit about MDR. Why it should be a topic for discussion for anybody except the three players involved, I have not understood, right? It'll go down exactly the same path as the ATM bit. When you start regulating interchange, you suppress the reason for an acquirer to make that investment, which he recoups over a period of time. Right? So you're asking people to put in POS terminals. There are 4 large banks that really do this, right? Your HDFC, ICICI, Axis and SBI. If they don't find it worth their while, which they already don't, because you're suppressing MDR below 1,000 rupee transaction to 0.25, for below 2,000 rupee transaction to 0.5, there is nothing in it for these banks to be interested in deploying. So you've throttled the virtuous cycle before it even started, right? So, I think that is something that nobody seems to be learning channel over channel, right? You have to stay out of it till it reaches a stage where the ecosystem decides its own levels, right? And the same thing will happen with wallets, right? Which are primarily what a wallet was purely premised on convenience arbitrage, right? It is easier to move money into a wallet and then make a payment as opposed to doing a net credit card or a debit card transaction, right? But once you remove the need for second factor authentication for transactions below 2,000, you've removed that arbitrage opportunity, right? Finally, it boils down to I need an account to debit and I need an account to credit, which means all intermediaries will vanish. There is no reason for these intermediaries to exist, right? So whether it's a Paytm or a MobiKwik or whoever, I don't know if they're in the room, but seriously, there is no real need for them to exist, which is what will happen with a Beam, right? And which is effectively they are competing against the banks, right? The banks also have economics when it comes to this whole thing, and that's a bank, if he has regulated charges on NEFT at 25 rupees, right? There is no reason for him to incentivize IMPS or Beam, because he might as well get that transaction routed through NEFT, right? So what I'm trying to say is really, people can make money as long as there is no artificial inflection or intrusion into the economics of this whole system. It needs to find its own level. But that unfortunately is wisdom that does not seem to have percolated over the last 20-25 years. Right? So I hope that changes, but I'm not sensing that it will in a hurry. So that's really something that I've seen for too long now.
That's a great point. Each bank will have to now go back to the drawing board, identify their costs, work out their own economic model for each channel separately, all right, and see whether it is economically viable or not, and whether they can make a little bit of money on that, right? And from what you said, the market forces are the best regulator instead of a top-down mandate or a government or regulation, right? That will artificially, shall we say, suppress the medium, right? So this is very interesting. The mobile and wallet and even Bheem, all these things are now being touted as the saviors of mankind, right? One thought that came to me was printing and distributing currency notes costs a lot of money to the Reserve Bank of India, which was being borne by the Reserve Bank of India. for making payments. Now, the customer is required to pay. That is the cost of the Reserve Bank of India by substituting cash with non-cash payments. The cost is being now spread across the citizens, so that the citizen now is required to pay for that, right? So, Ram, once again I come to you. What is the brief of NPCI, and how can this happen that we can make it as painless as possible? All right? So I think before cashless, we must have painless.
This question I will reply as an individual, not from the NPCI side, right? Right. But then I do agree with Sanjeev sir in one reason, that charity doesn't, you should know that at least somebody is not out of pocket. But today what is happening, last 5 months, we have made our switching zero. Now switching is our bread and butter. Our entire 1,000 people are starving us switching now. Last 5 months we are not taking. How long we can do? How long ATMs can... I as a consumer, I want 1,000 rupee in the village. I need money. I am ready to pay 10 rupee. Infrastructure. So the government, the RBI, everybody has to ensure that enough infrastructure is available across the country. The best technology is there. Consumer is ready to pay. Nobody is saying that I am not. Today, if you go to any ATM and money is not there, is standing in queue for 3 hours, I am ready to pay 15 rupees. No issues. So, sir, pricing and all, I think, is to leave it to the public. It should leave it to the users. As a RBI, you rightly pointed out that, yes, currency printing costs, they are saving. So then they can do some kind of subsidy or help the banks in going and creating infrastructure across the country. 2 lakh ATMs, sir, and then it has been decided that they should be EMV compliant. Out of 2 lakh ATMs, 40% ATMs cannot become EMV compliant, they have to be replaced. Another 30%, the cost of EMV compliance is much more than the cost of the ATM. So who is going to pay these charges? Somewhere we have to find out which technology is required. EMV compliance or Aadhaar based, another thing. The government and RBI and other decision makers has to come down and create a structure which is win-win situation for all the players. Otherwise it will not go in the long term. That is my personal take.
Thank you. Now to Rajneesh, one question. Over the last 1.5 months, I have seen notices at many retailers saying that transactions are likely to fail because of increased volumes. I don't know, many of you may have experienced this. This is to do with the scalability of the operations, the availability, and 2, the reconciliation part. Because I go to a petrol pump and my card is declined, but he's not going to let me go unless I pay him cash. Right? He'll hold on to my vehicle. So I pay him cash. But I get my cash back from the bank account only after about 3-4 days. Right? So how do we solve these 2 problems of 1, scalability, and 2, the quick customer redressal?
It's a pretty difficult question to answer, sir. But there are very, very simple answers to that. Why are we worried about scalability in the first place? The reason scalability comes into picture is because we are interdependent. We are interdependent with Visa Master. We are interdependent with RuPay now. We are interdependent with NPCI now. Why there has to be somebody to route everything? Why can't me and you exchange value with each other? The moment you go offline, the moment you go local, the question of scalability, reliability doesn't even arise. For that matter, P2P payments have arrived. So I have a stored value in my phone, you have a stored value in your phone. We just tap the phone to each other and exchange value. It's a local Bluetooth or sound wave based or NFC based transaction. 2 people exchanging value. Why bank is needed? The only reason why bank or any financial entity is needed, because the stored value has to be kept secured. My mobile phone may get stolen and somebody can actually do something with it. So I can't keep my money within the mobile. It has to go on the cloud. And the cloud may be a private cloud for that matter, within the bank domain or in a wallet company domain or anywhere. The only way it will be solved is through a P2P payment approach where when I sell something to you, it still remains a P2P payment, doesn't become a P2M payment. It's because of this P2M payment problem only, this interdependency is there, this interconnectivity is there, and so many things are coming. If me and Prasanna is a retailer, I am a buyer, I just want to give him 100 rupees, he wants to take 100 rupees, where everybody else is coming in picture. What business they got with it? He got 100 rupee toothpaste, I got 100 rupee stored value, we exchange P2P. Where is network required, sir? So the important point is that we need to go local. It means we need to go towards P2P payments. So networks don't come into picture, resiliency doesn't come into picture, scalability doesn't come into picture, disputes don't come into the picture, reconciliation doesn't come into picture because it's only happening between two people. And to make it happen, obviously we need to go local. And that is how it is going to get resolved, sir. Otherwise we will continue debating the intermediaries, the role of intermediaries, the chargebacks, the frauds. Just let's cut the chase, sir. Let's go for P2P payments.
So just to support what Rajnish has said, okay, so because of demonetization, although we have received so many transactions, like in tens, today we were receiving 100 transactions, immediately it has gone to the thousands. So although good factor is like we were able to test our system, okay, we have defined the system for the next 5 years for these many users. So I am happy to say that most of the banks must have seen and have seen key systems were working properly. So it's not like we have not faced any such a problem of the scalability. When you say it is end-to-end, as Rajnish has pointed out properly that it's a dependency of the other ecosystem. Like if the transaction is happened on a POS on SDFC banks, the POS is of suppose ICICI Bank and the card is of SDFC and it is routing towards Visa or NPCI. It's the whole ecosystem. So I think the systems which are available in India as of now, they are quite scalable and only thing is like people are not scaled to that number of transactions. Although during these last 1.5 months, although number of transactions increased, many people will come on to the digitalized way of doing the transactions. Still there is a long way to go. You could see that only 70% or 30% people are having, or only 20 crores debit card are there. And the mobile, you can say there are around 37 crore mobiles are there. That is only 20 crores are around only smartphones. So there is a long way, but the signal has given that we should be ready for that scalable transactions.
So in terms of scalability, again, somebody needs to make, if we talk about non-P2P sort of payments, somebody needs to make these investments, right? And that it finally does boil down to who are these people who are willing to make these investments and towards which direction are they going to move customers, right? I think even that is going to depend. It finally does, and we've seen it channel after channel, the big banks start controlling the economics of the channels. They start determining the rates that vendors get paid. They start determining the rates that customers get charged. And they start moving customers, because they're the ones with the marketing muscle and the customer ownership, towards channels where they make the most money. So, I don't know, there has to be some way of sort of balancing out that, right? There has to be some interventions that are non-supply throttling based. So what we've seen, and we do a POS business as well as an ATM business, right? The POS transactions that were routed through our terminals went up 200% between November and December, right? So probably 100% in November, another 100% in December. In January, as the cash supply started going up, 100% has got lopped off, it's back to 100%. Which means as the supply of cash goes back to normal, or I wouldn't even say normal, right? There was enough money being hoarded then. As long as it goes back to the amount of loose money which was in circulation, right? Your cash transactions would go back to exactly where they were. The POS transactions will go back to exactly where they were. So you've lost effectively an opportunity. Probably the only opportunity that the government or the country would see in its lifetime to do something with the economics, because you've allowed too many people with their own individual agendas to sort of hijack the process. Right? That's something that probably we still have a couple of months yet left to do, where it's a good time to actually stabilize all charges, remove unnecessary intermediaries or price them out, to make sure that the final customer, right, benefits in terms of access, the right intermediaries are incentivized, right? I'll give you a simple example, right? What's happening on MDR? Nobody was willing to bear it. The petrol surcharge MDR, right? The customer will not pay it, right? Because otherwise he'd have paid in cash. The banks say we've given a waiver till 31st December. We're not going to give it now. The petrol pumps threaten to go on strike. It's gone back as a subsidy, which the government will bear, right? And I guess it'd be like pretty impressive to see how the banks get this payment from the government and at what frequency, right? So what's it going to finally do? Another great opportunity, because petrol probably the largest single, if we talk about sheer volume per category, it's probably the largest single value of cash transactions in the country today. But you lost that opportunity already. So I'm saying we still have a couple of months to sort of work this out in a way that people move towards digital as opposed to relapsing back to cash, right? They'll do two things. They will relapse back to cash and they will throttle their consumption till their cash supply is at a level when it's convenient to use cash again. So we already see that today. So I'm just saying that that's something that probably needs to be looked at in terms of scalability of these sort of initiatives.
Thank you. That's a very wise saying, because the government-appointed Wattal committee is now released for comments from the public. I think this is one of those things that needs to be given back to the government, and before the report is acted upon, I suppose a lot of these things can probably be built into it. And the other thing that Rajneesh talked about, peer-to-peer payment. See, if I give you a 100 rupee note and you accept it because it is a fiat currency. It has the imprimatur of the government of India and guaranteed by the government and so on. So it is accepted without any question for you. But if I send a message from my mobile phone to your mobile phone and say, okay, assume that you have got my 100 rupees, that requires a little bit of work, because we are talking about digital currency. We need the imprimatur of the government or the monetary authority to say that yes, this message indeed is genuine, authentic, actually can be used for exchange of value. See, unless you have that kind of a legislative and regulatory framework, this kind of things cannot work. Because, see, I trust you, he may not trust me, right? So, the currency note printed by the government, Reserve Bank of India, is because everybody trusts that, right? So, there's a long way to go in a digital currency, but I think, again, as Sanjeev was saying, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a country to rejig their entire cash management, right? So I thank you all. We have talked about scalability. We have talked about alternate means of payments. We have talked about... I still haven't got any volunteers for rewriting all the apps in 13 languages of India. So I hope someday that will happen by all the banks, by all the wallets. Wallets are all English-speaking only, no? All the wallets?
So we are planning, we are working on to create it in 13 languages. We started initially with English and Hindi. So that part is already on. I think within months' time it will be over.
So I suppose Paytm is English and Chinese?
No, Paytm?
Huh.
No. Paytm?
Yeah.
Paytm is English, sir, but you look at where it is coming. Multilingual is anyway going to come. It's just a question of, how much time it is taking. All the apps are dual language anyway. So our own app is English and Hindi for that matter. By another 6 to 8 months, our apps or interfaces will become multilingual. So we'll have more than 13 languages getting supported. The problem is here is with technology at this point of time. It is very, very difficult to translate a sentence in English to Hindi exactly the way it was meant in English. So
Google
what is
does
happening
it all
is
the time.
transliteration is happening.
Google is doing it.
Sir, I'm coming to that. That's why I'm saying it's very difficult. So when you try to translate an English poem into Hindi poem, you may miss the idea on essence itself. So what the technology is doing...
Paisa is not poetry, I say.
Sir, I'm coming to that. That's where I'm saying the multilingual support is coming. Translation is still a costly affair. It still requires a lot of software and abilities to do it. Transliteration is what is easy. So the apps which are there in the market are actually transliterating. So what it simply means is it uses the alphabets of that particular language to show it to you. We are all English right now. In WhatsApp, when we are typing, we are typing Hindi as Hindi, or we are typing, Devanagari, we are maybe using alphabets to, English alphabets to write Hindi word. So transliteration is already there. It's the easiest and the best way to do it, and everybody is moving towards that. Okay. And coming to that point which you're making, sir, I'm just adding another dimension to it. I'm not against that, what you said. Trust is absolutely important. But trust doesn't need intermediary. Trust doesn't need any regulation. Trust doesn't need any government for that matter. For the simple reason that the Bitcoin goes to show. An individual creates a digital currency. It goes across the world. Where is government? Where is regulator? Where is police? Nobody is there. And it is spreading like wildfire. And the good thing about our regulator, sir, which I by heart believe, the most pragmatic regulator around the world. I've been to many countries. I have spoken and met and learned from them. There's no more pragmatic regulator than RBI. And our economic strength, our resilience against currency fluctuations, our resilience against anything goes to show that we have the best regulator possible. So nobody is denying the role of regulator over here. The point is, if the trust is the only issue for which governor has to sign on a currency note, where is that trust when it comes to digital currencies, where the multi-million-dollar contracts are now getting executed through digital currencies, and there's nobody who is owning it, and there's nobody who's disowning it.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially for contraband arms and drugs. So Thank you very much.
Another. The one which you talked about, multi-language, it's very easy to do as far as the app UI UX is concerned. But the next level, when we are going to talk about the transaction based upon voice, so wherein I talk in Marathi, in somewhere I want to know my balance. In the same way, another person talks in Marathi in some different tone. So these challenges will come as far as India is concerned.
Okay, thank you. I think we have identified the issues, challenges, and so on. And out of our limited knowledge, try to give some solutions. So I hope some of this will work. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Can we take one question? 2 questions? Okay, 2 questions. Okay, 2 hands up. Go ahead. Give him a mic, please. Somebody.
Hi, I'm Jubin Vora. I'm from Solver, and my question is to Mr. Prasanna. So this is basically from a customer perspective. When we talk about, an application penetration in the mobile phones of a customer and, using that application to do transactions, usually for banking or, for banking solutions, it should be a little higher. But for other businesses, it will not be more than 20-25% of a penetration. What are the other means or other channels that you see that, where the acceptance level or the penetration level goes to a much higher level? Say probably if you have 100 million customers, of which all of them are probably on feature phones or smartphones, assuming they are on, more than 50% of them are on smartphones, attaining that, 50% or, 70% of that 50 million customers, how is it that you see that, you can scale that users?
So, hello. So, I understood your question this way. I have a certain 100 number of customers, wherein 25 users are on smartphone and 75 are on feature phones. So how do I propagate my offerings on a particular channel to all those 75%? Is that so?
No. Say out of 100, 50 are on smartphone. Now out of that 50, how do you see that maximum people use your, say probably application, or you reach out to more number of people?
See, there are various ways to make awareness of a particular product to the customers by reaching out to the SMSs, reaching out personally. So whenever he is visiting to a particular branch, so onboarding onto that apps, how to use that app, and as well as when we are publishing an app, so it has to be followed by all the visuals of how to use it and so on. All these theories are there behind.
I agreed. So my point was that we don't see usually more than north of 25-30% of, because in a day-to-day life of a customer, he is transacting with, say, probably 10 odd, businesses or 10 odd services. It's not going to be feasible.
So how can I will answer this way, like when you are defining your product itself, you need to really identify who is your customer. if I really know who is my customer, I will really define a good product for him so that he utilizes that product on and often. It means that he is living from morning to evening on that app. Like if I am going to touch him for all his services, certainly he is going to use that. So it's a basic ground reality. How I am developing a product is what we need to figure it out. It's not like I know this is not my customer, I am developing something and then I'll go for that, how he should be used. So ground reality, like when I am defining my product, then I should know it should be very good product, like same services can be offered by some other bank. So this is my customer, he has to be there loyal to my app or my services, all the user experiences and his interests are all around that. I need to really take care of that while launching that product.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Aditya. I have a question for Ram. Actually, two parts. One with Bheem as an application. NPCI has directly reached out to the consumers, which I understand that, NPCI essentially is a network and works with banks. So is it a strategic move to do more such initiatives where you are going to directly interact and reach out to the consumers? That is number one. And number two is on UPI. What is the business model where, again, coming back to Sanjeev's, remark, how does it help the ecosystem or how does it incentivize the ecosystem to promote it itself and become, readily available and usable by more number of people?
Okay. So, the two questions you asked, then Bheem is a PSP which we created because we wanted to have a bank agnostic PSP, which anybody can download and add the bank of his choice, and he can change the bank also. While the banks were promoting their UPI app, which was their bank specific, number one. There were certain banks, the smaller banks, 1700 cooperative banks, were eventually coming on UPI. They cannot afford to have their own app. It's a very simple app. If you want any fancy app, then you can go to the bigger bank and take that. The second thing regarding the UPI, still we are finding the banks are not able to create some good use cases. We have created the railroad, and our job is only create the railroad. Eventually, bank has to create the business model and the use cases. So I'll request my member banks to create some more use cases, and eventually we need bigger merchants to come on that when RBI permits, and then they'll UPI really rock.
I think the largest use case is on merchant payments, where we all see that, currently only, I think you mentioned 1.5 million terminals are there and about 60 million micro merchants are there in the country. So you have a huge gap between, what is available and what can be implemented. So I think that is the biggest use case. But for the ecosystem players like banks or any other intermediaries to actually go and implement UPI or, similar systems, there needs to be a value generation which currently seems to be not there. So I think that's where the point is, that if we have to actually use UPI as a mechanism and the railroad to implement to 60 million merchants and get that the 500 billion number that you talked about in the beginning, there needs to be a suitable value for which can support each of the players in between.
I do agree with you. I do agree with you, and that's why we made the UPI channel agnostic now. Right. It works in data as well as the USSD. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.